live from a very cold Pietermaritzburg, Sunday afternoon, 31st of May. I've been busy with other issues, hence I have not put up any YouTube videos. But of course, those of you who have been following me on my business page would know that I'm reaching out to the community in different ways. What is it that's brought me back to doing a video? Today's the 31st of May, as I've said. And next week, around this time, it's 3:30 in the afternoon now, at 5 p.m. South African time, a conference is being held, a webinar. And this webinar is to commemorate the 7th of June, 1893. It is known as the night that changed the world. And you probably ask me why, and you're probably looking at the setting. I don't have my business board behind me, but I have the Mahatma. Now, it was on this night, a freezing cold South African Pietermaritzburg winter's night, that Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was thrown off the train, literally thrown off, pushed off, onto a cold platform in Pietermaritzburg, my home city. I suppose that's why I have some passion about it. And this was purely by virtue of the color of his skin. Now, all of us know Gandhi as the Mahatma, but as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and I don't want to go into the history because that's not why I'm doing this video. My purpose of this video is how can we take Gandhian principles and apply them to dealing with COVID-19. So the inspiration would obviously come from history. Gandhi was asked to come to South Africa to fight a case between two family members. They were both Sets, and we know what Sets mean. Sets are rulers. They have business and things like that. They have power. And it was then that he was given a ticket for the first class compartment. So he got on, and because of his color, when the train went through Pietermaritzburg, he was thrown out. Now, our winters are bitter. We live in the Midlands. It's pretty cold. And if I asked you now, how can we take this lesson? I have referred to an article this morning, beautifully written by Judge Rishi Segobin in his personal capacity, about Gandhi. And he talks about how Gandhi's stature as a lawyer was underscored by his unrelenting pursuit of the truth. He reflects on how Mohandas rose to become a learned, respected lawyer, putting facts and truth before all other restrictions and considerations. And he achieved all of this through non-violent means. Again, from the information taken from this article by Judge Segobin, Gandhi arrived in Durban in April 1893. Within a few days of setting foot in South African soil, Gandhi learned of the deep racial prejudices that existed, and Gandhi himself became known as a coolie barrister. The original meaning of the word coolie really meant porter, which was completely forgotten. A whole lawyer was referred to as a porter. Did it bother Gandhi? No, it didn't, because he had purpose. In the same way, does our status matter when we have to help somebody? If we're called names, if whatever's said about us while we're doing something, for the betterment of mankind, do we have to be bothered about it? Or do we follow Gandhian principles? On the second or third day of his arrival, Abdullah Seth took Gandhi to show him the Durban court. And there was the issue of him wearing a turban, etc. It was human rights issues. It was his culture. But Gandhi was prepared to do whatever was necessary to make sure that the purpose he was sent here for was met. However, there were lots of incidents that turned him from a lawyer into a social activist. Now reflect. Aren't there incidents that are going on now that are turning many of you into social justice activists? Shouldn't we be standing up? I am reflecting on Gandhi's principles, but there are things going on all over the world, and we cannot afford to keep quiet. We cannot afford to say, it doesn't affect me, because as long as you're human, it should affect you. If you have a conscience, it should affect you. So anyways, this case was tried, and then he was given this ticket, and of course, that's what happened. Thrown off onto the platform on this very cold night. As I said, I'm not going to dwell on the history of it. History is not what I'm very good at, and I never liked it at school anyways. But I would like to bring in Gandhi's principles dealing with COVID-19. I read a further article. It was in one of the Indian medical journals. And they mentioned something about Gandhi's passion for medicine. Now, before I go on to that, I'd like to just draw to a close the historical part with a quote that I've taken from Judge Siegelman's article. If you'd like to know more about this article, inbox me and I will send you the link. It's a brilliant article. It's one of those articles that's written in a language that everybody understands, not too much of anything, but it's got the message across. In his words, whilst destiny may claim some credit for directing this humble man to our shores, as a nation, we can feel justly proud to have produced a great lawyer and social activist whose philosophies of truth and nonviolence served to shape and influence other great leaders, such as John Langali Balele Dube, Dr. Martin Luther King, and President Nelson Mandela. Now, using this as a thought, I'd like to go into the role that Gandhi played in healing the sick, and how he possibly would have approached COVID-19 pandemic, especially in South Africa. There's an article called The Medical Legacy of Gandhi, Demystifying Human Diseases, and it's by Ranjikant and Balram Bhargava. And this article I took from the Indian Journal of Medical Research. Anyone who observes the rules of health will not need to knock the doors of doctors from day to day. The words of M.K. Gandhi. But as we go on, you will see how he accepted that both forms of medicine go together. Now, what we're facing, there was another article a few days ago where a lady refused to wear her mask to enter a store. And she caused havoc. This is one of the stores overseas. And because she wasn't allowed in, obviously she's got her YouTube fame, she's got clicks, so she's become some great celebrity for, the green consciousness, etc. I respect that. I'm all for not using chemicals, etc. But these are lives being lost, and we need to be considerate of each other. Albert Einstein wrote of Gandhi, generations to come, it may be they will scarce believe that such a one as this ever in flesh and blood walked upon this earth. Gandhi was interested in studying medicine, and he wanted to become a medical practitioner. There were two pivotal problems with this in his life. And in 1888 and in 1909, when Gandhiji wanted to earn a medical degree and become a doctor, these were the 2 years that were very, very critical, and he couldn't. In 1888, he was 18 years old, and he wanted to go to England to study medicine. His father was a high-ranking government official, and he passed away then. 2 years ago. So there was this 18-year-old, and there was no ways he could go. So it was Gandhiji's elder brother who dissuaded him from studying medicine. And he said that their father would have disapproved of the decision because they were Vaishnavas. Now that's for another discussion, because Vaishnavas generally had nothing to do with dead bodies. And we know that Gandhi was not a person to promote caste or class. But he was also somebody who respected his parents' decision. From this, obviously looking at this, I researched another article. And this is by Sujay Biswas, and it's called Gandhi's Approach to Caste and Untouchability. Now, in this article, there are some reference comments by Anil Noria, and I've had the honor of meeting Anil, a very, very learned person. Very interesting points of view, and an article worth reading. So if you're hanging on to the fact of what I've mentioned, that he was not permitted to touch dead bodies, then that's an article I would suggest you read. So let's get back to Gandhi. His brother suggested that he study law, and he became a barrister. He didn't end up pursuing medicine, but it didn't diminish his interest in health and working for the sick and the poor. So let me bring that back into COVID. Even if you are not on the front line, even if you don't have to care for somebody, as in physically be a health practitioner, you can offer your help for a person's mental health. You can actually support them in so many ways to maintain good health. You can motivate them, you can inspire them. Let us not be selfish and leave it to the doctors only, or to the medical personnel. They will burn out. And if it hasn't happened already, it's going to happen. So let us adopt that other teaching of Gandhi. He was a barrister, but he still had that passion to help people. He was a selfless person who could put his career as a barrister aside and look at the needs of the people at that time. It is also stated in the article that he helped during the war to arrange ambulance services. Further to that, during the plague, he requested that a place be given to nurse people back to health. And the mayor of the city that, this took place in gave them an area. And it was so filthy. So what Gandhiji did, he cleaned it. He and the others involved. And they got the people in there. They got the place sorted. And they treated as best as they could. Remember, I go back again, this is not a doctor I'm talking about. This is a barrister. But he could do it. So what's your excuse that you cannot help? All that we are supposed to do now is be careful, wear our masks, sanitize, wash, social distancing. Is that too much to ask? So let's go even further. We all know that quinine is one of the drugs used when treating malaria. So there was a time when one of the people under his care needed quinine. And that was one of the things that Gandhiji had approved of. Yes, we have natural medicine. You watch your diet, cleanliness, etc. But there is a place for allopathic medicine. And quinine and iodine were the two things that he had acceded to. We cannot afford to be extreme in the way we're handling COVID. We have to understand that with the medical aspect, with the science, we need to practice cleanliness. We need to be mindful of these things, or else the two cannot work together. We're fighting a losing battle if we think that's going to work. There was also a time when Gandhiji was sick, and knowing how particular he was about this. Remember, he had lived a life of very, very careful eating. And because his body was not tarnished by the wrong things, when he was eventually convinced to take the quinine to recover, he took it. And within 2 small doses, he was fine. He recovered. And this was in spite of his age and his failing health. So we look at medicine, we look at natural remedies, we look at everything we can do, be it mentally, be it physically, as complementary in dealing with COVID-19. It's difficult not to bring in other aspects of Gandhi, because this was a man who had so many parts to him, really. All he said was, I ask you to consider, with the poorest of poor not having access to clean water and to sanitation, how can we cure anybody? This is the same question I ask. 21st century, 2020, 26 years into democracy. We still have people in this country without water and without sanitation. How do we expect them to social distance? How do we expect them to wash their hands as often as they need to when there isn't water to drink? If you are dying of thirst or you are thirsty, are you going to wash your hands first or are you going to drink first? Questions that you need to think about. In an article, Medicine for the Masses, Sushila Nair wrote that Gandhiji was so gentle with patients that she once told him, Babuji, you should have been a doctor. And Gandhiji had replied, I always wanted to be one. Call those people Vaishnavas, or whatever you want to call them. But I'd like to leave you with a thought. And I'm going to quote from one of Gandhiji's favorite bhajans. I will quote it in the vernacular and then in English. And this was written by Narsi Mehta in the 15th century. Vaishnava janato tene kahiye, ye pira paraye jani re, par dukhe upakar kare toye, man abhimana na aayi re. Please bear these words in mind. Call those people Vaishnavas, great souls who feel the pain of others. Help those who are in misery, but never let self-conceit come to your mind. Much love. Let us face COVID-19 with Gandhian principles.